Have you ever watched a little kid really struggling, trying to write their name, maybe gripping the pencil super hard, letters all over the place? Maybe you thought, oh, they just need more practice with their ABCs. It's such a common thought, right? We instinctively want to jump straight to letters. But today we're doing a deep dive into something maybe even more fundamental. We're looking at the often overlooked world of pre-writing skills for young learners. Our mission here is to unpack why these foundational skills, just forming simple lines, basic shapes, are so incredibly crucial. Before we push kids towards writing actual letters, think of it this way. Kids need to walk before they can run, right? Well, they really need to master these pre-writing skills before they can develop handwriting that's actually legible and, efficient. We've got some great insights and research to share on this.
That's exactly right. It's such a key point. When we talk about handwriting readiness, it's way more than just handing a child a pencil. What's really foundational is understanding this idea that pre-writing isn't random. It actually involves a pretty structured progression. Kids learn to make marks on paper, starting with really basic, almost instinctive movements, and then they gradually get more complex and controlled.
Oh, interesting. Structured, huh? I guess I might have thought it was more just, messy exploration. Can you walk us through that? Like, what's the typical path kids follow? Are there common mistakes we make in thinking about this?
Absolutely. And yeah, the messy exploration, the scribbling, that's definitely the essential first step. Kids need that time to just explore the tool, make marks. But after that initial phase, they generally progress through a specific sequence of pre-writing strokes. They don't just wake up knowing how to draw a circle and a square all at once.
Okay, so lay it out for us. What's the roadmap look like?
Sure. So after that scribbling stage, you'll typically see vertical lines emerge. That's often around age 2. Then come horizontal lines. After that, drawing a circle. Following the circle, they usually learn to make a plus sign and then a square shape. As they get a bit older, maybe 4 or 5, you start to see diagonal lines. Then comes the X shape, which uses those diagonals crossing. And finally, the triangle. That one's actually quite complex and often doesn't really solidify until age 5 or even a bit later.
Wow. Okay, that's a really clear progression. Vertical, horizontal, circle, plus square. Then diagonals, X, triangle. So it's not just random doodling building skill. It's mastering these specific forms in order. It really drives home that idea you mentioned, lines and shapes before letters. That's the big takeaway, isn't it?
Precisely. That's the core message. And, if we broaden the view slightly, it's not just about controlling a pencil to make these specific marks. There's a whole host of other skills developing alongside this that are just as crucial. They all form this comprehensive foundation together.
Ah, okay. So it's bigger than just the hand and the pencil. What else is part of this foundational puzzle? What other, maybe seemingly unrelated abilities are feeding into this?
You got it. It's much broader. For kids to be successful with handwriting down the line, they also need, well, adequate muscle strength, just in their fingers and hands. And really critically, they need postural control. That's the ability to sit upright and stay stable while they're doing things at a table. That often develops through big body play, gross motor skills. Then there's something called visual motor integration skills. This one's fascinating. It's basically the brain's ability to see something, interpret that visual information, and then coordinate a motor action in response. Like you see a ball coming towards you, and your hands move to catch it almost automatically. Research actually shows that strong visual motor skills are really closely linked to academic performance overall, and definitely to eye-hand coordination.
So it's not just dexterity, it's how their brain connects seeing and doing. And the better that link, the better prepared they are for learning in general, not just writing. Makes sense. What else is on that list? It sounds like quite a few things need to line up.
Yeah, there are several key pieces. They also need a developing attention span, the ability to focus. Visual perceptual skills are important too, being able to tell differences in size and shape accurately. Bilateral coordination, that's using both sides of the body together effectively, like one hand writes while the helper hand holds the paper steady. An efficient pencil grasp, obviously, is vital. We can talk more about that later. Object manipulation, just being able to pick up and use something like a crayon or a block smoothly with one hand. And then there are things like motivation, motor planning, which is figuring out the steps to make a movement, and just basic cognitive awareness of what the task is. It really is a complex dance, like you said, lots of different abilities working together.
Wow. Yeah, it definitely sounds like we're training a whole system, not just a hand. It's the whole child's development feeding into this. So let's circle back. Why are these pre-writing skills so profoundly important? Why should parents and educators really prioritize making sure these building blocks are solid?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Especially when there's pressure to jump ahead. Well, first off, These skills really are the absolute building blocks for efficient handwriting. But their impact, it goes much further. Research consistently shows how significant they are. For instance, early fine motor writing skills. They're seen as a really important school readiness skill, and they're strongly associated with later academic success, kind of across the board.
Across the board. So not just neater handwriting, but potentially better performance in, like, math and reading, too. That's a pretty big connection.
It is, absolutely. And furthermore, the act of writing by hand in these early years actually seems to support the development of reading skills. There's a connection there. And other research shows that a kindergartner's visual motor integration skills, that seeing and doing connection we talked about, can predict their achievement in reading, math, and spelling, as well as writing itself. It's a direct, measurable link, which really underlines why giving kids the time and, the space to really master these lines and shapes first is so critical. Don't rush it.
That is compelling stuff. Okay, but let's tackle the elephant in the room. I bet some listeners are thinking this. In today's world, with tablets, keyboards, everything digital, why do we even need these pre-writing skills? Is handwriting still relevant?
It's a totally valid question, and it's one researchers have definitely looked into. Despite, how tech-driven everything is, there are still some really strong benefits to having legible, efficient handwriting. For one thing, and this might seem superficial, but it's real teachers often tend to give higher grades to assignments that just look neater, that are easier to read. It might be an unconscious bias, but studies show it happens. It can impact how a child's work is perceived.
Okay, presentation still counts. But playing devil's advocate, shouldn't the content always matter more, especially when they're just learning? How do we square that?
That's a great point. And ideally, yes, content should be king. However, what we also see is that when kids really struggle with the mechanics of handwriting, it can actually consume their attention. So instead of focusing on what they want to say, they get bogged down in how to form each letter. It takes up all their cognitive energy. This can really shift their focus away from expressing ideas to just the physical act, which hinders their writing development overall. And you can imagine kids who find handwriting consistently difficult often start to have negative feelings about writing altogether. That can lead to frustration, feeling like they're not good at it, and just poor motivation to even try.
Yeah, that makes total sense. If it's always a struggle, they'll just avoid it, right? And they miss out on practicing the content side, too.
Exactly. And there's one more piece beyond the practical stuff. The act of handwriting, because it requires such fine motor control, actually stimulates the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain involved in self-regulation, planning, executive functions. So it's not just a mechanical skill. It's literally a cognitive workout that helps build important brain pathways.
That's a really powerful argument for making sure kids get that time and space to develop these skills properly.
So for everyone listening, parents, educators, what can they actually do? How can we help kids develop these crucial pre-writing skills effectively?
Well, the general approach, I'd say, is really about encouraging kids to play a lot. Let them interact with real-world objects throughout their day. That's how they naturally develop fine motor skills and visual perceptual skills, often without even realizing they're working on something. And, crucially, don't forget about gross motor play. Running, jumping, climbing, outdoor time, all that physical activity is incredibly important for building the core strength and postural control they need to eventually sit comfortably and write.
So it's not just about worksheets at a desk, got it? It's a much broader, more active approach.
Sure.
Can you give us some specific examples, maybe some favorite activities that really work well for developing these skills through play? Oh, definitely. Play is where it's at for these skills. Let's see. Number one, Play-Doh. Classic, right? But it's fantastic for strengthening all those little muscles in the fingers, hands, even up into the shoulders from all the kneading and squishing.
Love Play-Doh. Okay, what else?
Two, playing in prone. That just means having them play while lying on their belly, propped up on their elbows. This position naturally strengthens their shoulders, arms, hands, even their head and neck muscles. Plus, it gives great sensory input, proprioceptive and tactile.
Okay, tummy time, but for older kids too. Makes sense.
3, animal walks. Think like bear crawls, crab walks, seal walks where they use their hands on the floor. Builds great upper body strength and coordination.
Fun. What's next?
4, sensory trays. Let them make marks in things like shaving cream spread on a tray or sand, even flour. It's wonderfully tactile, great for exploring mark making without the pressure of holding a tool perfectly.
Ooh, messy but effective.
5, lacing activities. Things like lacing beads onto a string or using lacing cards. Really good for that fine-tuned, intricate motor control and hand-eye coordination.
Good one. Number 6.
6, Building blocks. Lego, Duplo, any kind of interlocking blocks. They're great for fine motor skills, building hand and finger strength, and also visual spatial skills, figuring out how pieces fit together.
A staple for a reason. 7.
7. Finger paint. Another great way to explore mark making on a bigger scale. Just pure exploration. And if a child really dislikes the feeling, you can offer alternatives like maybe dipping toy cars in paint to make tracks or using chunky brushes.
Good tip for sensory sensitivities. Number 8.
8. Moving or placing objects along a path. You could draw lines or simple shapes on paper and have them place stickers or small pebbles along the line. Or put masking tape lines on the floor for toy cars to drive on. Or even draw big chalk lines outside for them to follow on a tricycle. Helps with visual tracking and following a line, motor control.
Oh, I like that one. Connects drawing lines to movement. 2 more.
9. This sort of builds on prone play, working on a vertical surface. Taping paper to a wall or using an easel encourages better wrist extension and shoulder stability, which are important for pencil grasp later on.
Okay, vertical work. And the last one.
10. Just free time with drawing tools. Encourage them to just scribble, draw, interact with pencils, crayons, paper. They need hours and hours of this kind of practice for those fingers, hands, and shoulders to really get strong and coordinated.
Those are fantastic suggestions, and they all sound like fun, not like chores.
Yeah.
It really drives home that learning these foundational skills can just be part of natural, enjoyable playtime. Okay, so now that we know what to do, let's switch gears a bit. Let's challenge some common myths or misconceptions that might actually get in the way of developing these skills effectively. It's time to debunk some myths. What's the first big one we need to tackle?
Okay, let's dive in. Myth number 1, pencil grasp just develops naturally. Kids will figure it out on their own.
Oh yeah, I hear that all the time. Don't worry about how they hold it, they'll just get it. But what's the reality?
Well, the reality is that's largely untrue. An efficient, functional pencil grasp usually needs to be taught and reinforced. It's actually quite complex, coordinating all those small muscles. If we just leave it to chance, kids often develop inefficient grips that can be tiring, lead to poor control, and are really hard to change later on. Consciously teaching it shows it's important for control.
Okay, myth busted. What's next? How about this one? Demonstrating pre-writing activities to the whole class is efficient and saves time.
The whole group demo. It seems efficient, right? But for these kinds of skills, especially with young kids, it often doesn't lead to mastery for everyone. Little kids often lack the mature perceptual and visual skills to really grasp the nuances from a distance or a large group setting. What the research really points to is that small group instruction, or even one-on-one guidance, is much more effective for ensuring kids truly master these pre-writing strokes. They need that tailored support.
Right. Individualized attention makes sense for motor skills. Okay. Myth number 3. Playing on playgrounds and building with blocks will develop all the bilateral control needed for writing.
So those activities are great, and they definitely help build general hand-eye coordination and using two hands together, bilateral integration. That's true. But it's not quite the same as the specific controlled bilateral coordination needed for writing. Pre-writing and writing require a more refined integration, one hand doing the skilled work, the other stabilizing, plus precise visual tracking. The truth is, kids often need targeted instruction on sitting posture at a table and explicitly learning how to use their helper hand to hold the paper still. It doesn't always just transfer automatically from the playground.
That's a really subtle but important distinction. Okay, how about this one? Every 4-year-old child knows where their pointer finger is. Seems pretty basic, right?
You'd think so. But this one surprises a lot of people. Many young children, even bright ones with good language, genuinely don't have that specific finger awareness yet. If you say, put your pointer finger here to teach a grasp, they might honestly not know which finger you mean. So, contrary to belief, kids really need to be explicitly taught body awareness, including the names and feel of their different fingers. We can't just assume they know.
Wow, okay. Good reminder to be explicit. Myth number 5. Kids with sensory processing difficulties or visual perceptual issues are easy to spot.
Oh, definitely not always. There's such a wide spectrum with these issues. They can be really subtle and genuinely hard to detect without a proper evaluation by someone trained, like an occupational therapist. And kids can be good at compensating or avoiding tasks they find difficult. A child might just say they don't like coloring or drawing, or that they'd rather run around. It's easy to mistake a potential underlying challenge for just a preference or lack of interest.
Okay, so look closer if a child consistently avoids those tasks. Myth 6. No child needs to be taught how to color. Surely that's just intuitive, isn't it?
It seems like it should be. But coloring is actually a pretty complex skill when you break it down. It requires fine motor coordination to hold the crayon, visual tracking to stay somewhat within the lines, consistent pressure, attention.
Hmm.
It's a lot. So yes, it actually should be taught and practiced. And interestingly, with screen time, some kids who are used to digital coloring with a finger might actually struggle with or reject traditional crayons. They haven't developed the hand strength or graded control needed for the friction of a wax crayon on paper.
That's a really interesting modern twist. Okay, myth 7. Free writing builds confidence. Just letting them write however they want.
Well, free expression is valuable, yes. But when it comes to the mechanics of forming letters, just letting kids write them any which way, it often leads to them cementing inefficient or incorrect motor patterns. They might form letters from bottom up or with awkward strokes. And those habits, once ingrained, are notoriously difficult to change later on. So while free drawing is great for actual letter formation, teaching the correct strokes at an appropriate developmental stage after mastering those pre-writing lines and shapes is actually much better for building long-term confidence and competence.
Okay, so structure's important there too.
Right.
Myth 8. All crayons are the same. Just grab any old box.
Huh. No, definitely not. This is another common misconception. The type and even the shape of the crayon can make a big difference, especially for little hands learning control. Think about it. Shorter, chunkier crayons, or those little rock-shaped crayons, they almost force a child's fingers into a more functional, tripod-like grasp. Longer, skinny crayons are harder for little hands to control, so the tool itself can really help or hinder grasp development.
Good practical tip. Myth 9. Start teaching handwriting when children show interest in letters. Wait for them to ask.
This sounds child-led and positive, but writing letters is actually a very complex task. It demands much higher level visual, perceptual, and fine motor skills than just recognizing or naming letters. The truth is, readiness for handwriting isn't just about interest in the alphabet. It's about having the underlying motor skills, the sensory processing, the attention, the cognitive skills all sufficiently developed. So you should really start teaching formal handwriting when they have those foundational pre-writing skills in place, ensuring they're truly set up for success, not just frustration. Prioritize readiness over just interest.
Okay, focus on the foundational skills first. Last one, myth 10. Lefties will always be sloppy writers.
This poor stereotype. It really is a persistent one, isn't it? And it's often just not true. The sloppiness, sometimes associated with left-handed writers, is frequently due to a lack of appropriate instruction, not anything inherent about being left-handed. The reality is, left-handers need slightly different guidance. They need to be taught how their hand should be positioned, maybe tilting the paper differently, how to form letters efficiently from their perspective. With early, targeted teaching that considers their unique needs, left-handers can absolutely become neat and efficient writers. Most issues can be prevented with the right support from the start.
Fantastic. That busts a lot of myths. And it really highlights just how important it is to understand the nuances here, right? It's not as simple as just handing over a pencil. This whole deep dive, it really underscores the profound importance of these foundational pre-writing skills, making sure we prioritize the development of lines and shapes before we get heavily focused on letters. It's not just about neatness. It's truly about building a solid base for a child's entire academic journey, their confidence, even their cognitive development. It's about giving them that crucial time and space they need.
Exactly. And maybe a final thought to leave people with. Consider this. Investing time and effort in these foundational pre-writing skills early on. It isn't just about legible handwriting down the road. It's really about fostering a child's overall confidence as a learner, boosting their academic readiness across different subjects, and even stimulating their cognitive growth. You're setting them up for success in ways that go far beyond just the page.
That's a really powerful thought. Thank you. And if you, listening, need resources to help children succeed with these skills, check out Your Therapy Source. They have lots of great free printables and activities and more.